When I walked into the courtroom, the judge was shocked. His eyes widened in disbelief. His lips trembled as he leaned forward and whispered my name like a ghost from a nightmare he never wanted to remember. "Why are you here?" he said, his voice breaking under the weight of memories buried too deep. But now on earth, in front of the whole world, I stood there motionless, my heels clicking on the cold marble floor, echoing through the silent hall of justice. The same hall where 5 years ago my life had been torn apart. The same courtroom where I had been silenced, betrayed, and sentenced without a crime. I could feel the whispers around me, the air thick with judgment, but I was no longer the broken girl who had left this place. I was the storm that had come back to collect what was stolen from her. I had spent every second of those years building my strength, piece by piece, learning how to fight, how to deceive, how to turn pain into power. And now, standing before the man who had once looked down from his bench and destroyed my world, I was ready to end his. He didn't know who I had become. He only saw the ghost of the woman he had condemned, the woman whose husband had died mysteriously, whose child had vanished, whose house had burned down on the same night that a false confession was forced out of her. He had thought I would fade away, disappear like a stain erased from his record. But I didn't disappear. I rose from the ashes like a shadow that learned how to smile through tears. I watched him build his empire of justice while hiding his sins behind polished words and fake righteousness. I saw the way he shook hands with the same men who had ordered my husband's death. I watched him toast with them, laughing while I starved on the streets. And now here I was, standing in front of him, not as a victim, but as his reckoning. Every heartbeat felt like thunder as I took the witness stand. The prosecutor glanced at me, confused, flipping through his files, not finding my name anywhere. The defense attorney looked nervous, as if he already knew that this day would not end like any other trial. The judge cleared his throat, trying to steady himself, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. I could smell it. The fear that once lived inside me now belonged to him. He started the proceedings, his voice echoing the usual formalities, but he avoided my eyes, and that was my first victory. Because I knew he remembered. He remembered that night when he had called me into his chamber, promising to help me save my husband if I just signed one paper, one false statement that would condemn an innocent man. I was desperate back then. I signed, and my husband was killed hours later. That paper sealed both our fates, mine in chains, his in power. As the questioning began, I let the silence stretch, heavy enough to make everyone uneasy, and then I began to speak, not from the witness chair, but from the grave of my past. I told them about the night of the fire, how the police came before the flames even rose, how the neighbors vanished, how the records disappeared. I told them about the hidden accounts, the offshore money that linked the judge, the prosecutor, and the man who ran the company my husband had exposed for corruption. Each word I spoke was a nail in the coffin of his reputation. The audience gasped, the reporters scribbled, the courtroom buzzed like a hive on fire. But I kept my gaze fixed on him, his face pale, his hand gripping the gavel so tight his knuckles turned white. He tried to stop me, banging the gavel, shouting order in the court, but his voice cracked, and the mask of authority fell apart. I smiled, not with joy, but with the satisfaction of justice long denied. I handed over the evidence, the photos, the recordings, the documents, all gathered over 5 years of hunting in silence. The truth was now a blade, and I was ready to twist it. The prosecutor tried to object, but the new evidence was undeniable. The judge who had ruled over hundreds of cases was now the one being accused. His own courtroom turned into a cage of truth. Then something unexpected happened. A man stood up from the audience, wearing a black coat, his face half hidden but familiar. My heart froze as I realized who he was. My husband, the one I thought dead, the one I buried with my own hands. The room erupted, gasps, screams, disbelief. My knees almost gave out, but he walked toward me, steady, eyes locked with mine, and then turned to face the judge. "You tried to kill me," he said, his voice deep and cold, "but you failed." The room went silent again, like the world itself had stopped breathing. The judge stumbled back, his mouth opening and closing, no words coming out. He confessed right there, trembling, sweating, tears mixing with guilt. He admitted to everything: the bribes, the murders, the lies, the false verdicts, every secret he thought buried, now bleeding into the open. His empire crumbled in minutes as the marshals moved to arrest him. I watched as the man who had once stood above everyone now looked small, broken, defeated. The gavel fell from his hand and rolled toward my feet. I picked it up, held it for a moment, and placed it gently on the bench where he once sat. The balance of justice restored. Outside the courthouse, rain began to fall, washing the steps clean. Lightning flashed across the sky as if the heavens themselves had waited for this moment. My husband stood beside me, his hand trembling in mine. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Our silence was louder than any words as we walked away from the ruins of his corruption. I looked back one last time at the courtroom doors closing behind the past that had haunted me for years, and I whispered, "Justice is not blind. She just takes her time." As we disappeared into the rain, the news broke across every channel. The fallen judge, the resurrected husband, the woman who came back from the dead to expose them all. My name echoed through the city, not as a warning, but as a legend. The Black Queen's Revenge, the title they gave me, and I wore it like a crown, not of gold, but of scars. Because those scars were the proof that I had survived, that I had fought, and that I had won. And as the story ends here, if you felt the fire in these words, the pulse of justice, the taste of victory born from pain, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel, Black Queen's Revenge, where every story reminds you that strength is silent but unstoppable, and that no matter how deep they bury you, you can always rise again.